A man was working the stern rail of a fishing boat off the Oregon coast when the water behind him rose. Not a wave. A surge. The whole black surface lifting as something enormous passed just beneath it. And in a single second he was gone. No struggle. No cry the crew could hear over the engine. One moment he was there, both hands on the rail, and the next the rail was empty and the sea was closing over the place he had been. It was all recorded. The captain handed that recording to the Coast Guard the morning they made port, and it was never seen again. The report they filed weeks later called it a man overboard in rough seas, and the boat's own instruments logged the water that night as nearly calm. This is what took Wyatt Corriveau off the deck of the Cascade Reach, what 4 surviving crew swore to, and what was stripped out of the record before anyone filed it. Start with the boat, because it was not a small one. The Cascade Reach was a 90-foot commercial trawler, steel-hulled, built for the open Pacific, working the deep water past the edge of the continental shelf where the seafloor falls from a few hundred feet to more than a mile within a short run. That drop-off is where the fish are, because cold water wells up from the deep and concentrates life against the shelf edge, which means it is also, by simple predator logic, where something large enough to hunt the things that eat the fish would come. Hold that, because it is the whole reason this stretch of water matters. 11 miles out, at 2 in the morning, there is no light but the boat's own. A hard pool of light on black water, and past its edge, nothing. The trouble started on the sonar, the way it always does. Around 1 in the morning, the wheelhouse picked up a return that did not belong. A single solid contact. Deep, far too large for a school and far too purposeful for debris, moving in a slow arc beneath the boat. The captain had 30 years on that water and had never seen a single return that size. On the recording of the wheelhouse radio, his voice is calm at first, reading an instrument. That calm does not last, and the way it goes is the part the surviving crew could never shake. Because the contact rose. It came up out of the deep slowly, deliberately, and as it climbed it tightened its arc around the hull. 600 feet, 400. The captain called the crew off the working deck and up toward the wheelhouse, all but one, a deckhand named Wyatt Corriveau, who was securing gear at the stern and had 30 seconds of work left. Keep those 30 seconds in mind. 200 feet. On the sonar, the thing resolved to a length the operator refused to say aloud over the radio because it was longer than the boat, and the boat was 90 feet, and then it stopped rising. It held, deep beneath the keel, dead still, for almost 2 minutes, an interval the instrument log and 4 separate statements all confirm. 2 minutes of something as long as the vessel, hanging motionless in the black water directly below their feet, while one man finished his work at the rail, alone, with his back to the sea. What happened in the seconds after is what the Coast Guard will not release, and what the 4 surviving crew described, separately and consistently, is worse than any recording alone. The surface off the stern broke, and a huge dark shape rose partly out of the black water at the edge of the boat's lights. No one aboard agreed on every detail, the way frightened people never do, but they agreed on the ones that matter. The shape stood taller than a man above the water line, and behind it a long dark mass kept breaking the surface. A body that ran, every witness swore, past the length of a boat that measured 90 feet. And a wake, thrown from a single slow turn, rolled the loaded trawler hard enough to put men on their knees on the wheelhouse deck, from 30 yards away. No animal known to live in that ocean can move enough water to roll a 90-foot boat from 30 yards. Whatever came up alongside the Cascade Reach was not on any list. It made one pass. That was all it took. A surge rose behind Corriveau at the rail he had both hands on, and in a single second the water took him. The crew reached the stern within moments and put every light they had on the water. The glare lit 40 yards of sea in every direction. There was nothing. No shape, no wake, no sign a man had ever been there. On the sonar, the thing was already leaving. 200 feet, 400, 800, straight down, back over the shelf edge into water a mile deep, gone below range in under a minute. The way something returns to a place it knows and we do not. They searched until dawn in water cold enough to kill in minutes, because that is what you do. and because none of them would say aloud what all of them had watched. The exciting answer is a surviving megalodon, and it has to be set aside honestly, because the honest version is the strong one. The fossil record puts that animal's extinction around 3.5 million years ago, and the standard model calls it a warm, shallow water predator, which would rule out the cold, deep water off Oregon entirely. But that model rests on a single assumption, that the animal lived where its remains are found. Its teeth fossilize and settle on the seafloor, and surveys recover them from shallow water for one reason, because the deep ocean floor below 3,000 feet has essentially never been sampled. If a population had followed the prey down the shelf into the cold dark as the surface oceans cooled, their remains would rest on a bottom no core sample has ever touched. We did not find them there because we have never looked there. Absence of evidence in a place no one has searched is not evidence of absence. Whatever the crew saw was longer than a 90-foot boat, moved along the shelf edge in the deep, and displaced enough water to roll a trawler. We do not have to name it to be unable to explain it. And that is the part that Tidy Answer sets aside. The report called it a man overboard in rough seas. The instrument log recorded the sea as nearly calm, with swells under 3 feet. The recording showed a wall of water taking a man off a rail he was holding with both hands. The 4 crew swore to a shape taller than a man and a body longer than the boat. None of it was refuted, it was removed. The sonar log was separated from the file, the crew statements reclassified as supplementary, and the recording taken as evidence and never returned. The case closed within weeks. When the captain requested it a year later, he was told it could not be located. He never got it back, and he never went back to that water. So we are left with a recording no one outside that investigation has ever seen. A calm sea the report called rough, a man who had both hands on the rail, and a stretch of deep water off the Oregon coast, past the edge of the shelf that drops a mile into the dark and has never been surveyed, where something long enough to outmeasure a 90-foot boat rose slowly out of the deep, held beneath the hull for 2 minutes, took one man in a single second and dropped straight back down to a place we have never seen. The Coast Guard has decided it does not exist. The 4 men who watched it and the one the water took would have told you otherwise. And it is still down there in the cold dark over the shelf edge, in the one part of the ocean we have never looked, choosing when to rise. If you have ever been out on deep water and felt something you could not explain, a shape too large, a swell that came from nowhere, a pull too strong to be real, tell me where you were in the comments, and subscribe to our channel for more accounts from the deep.